Hey guys, continuing Iamblichus' Exhortation to Philosophy, chapter 17. In this part of the chapter, Iamblichus is talking. In this chapter, a lot Iamblichus is talking about desire, and he gives us different myths that are related to desire from Pythagorean and other traditions. Here, he gives a myth of an Italian. He says some Italian man or woman created a myth of a jar. And he said the desiring part of our soul is like a jar full of holes. And no matter how much we put in, it can never be filled. And then he gives an example saying that the foolish, the uninitiated, those who do not know the truths, after death, the myth is that they're forced to carry a jar filled with water, and because of all the holes in it, the water is constantly leaking. So they have kind of an impossible task. And Iamblichus also says this also reflects the soul insofar as it's unable to hold knowledge. I assume because the person hasn't trained it and hasn't lived a philosophical life. And this is an interesting spin on things for me, because we see that the more a person lives a philosophical life, the more they develop self-control and so forth, the more their memory starts to increase. They start to remember more and more things. I assume this is because the mind is becoming clear. And thus the more they can retain, more knowledge they can retain. But the more they scatter their life in terms of satisfying desires, the more forgetful they become. Because the mind is constantly jumping from one thing to the next. I have seen this. I haven't researched if psychology supports this, but logically it seems to make sense to me. And in myself I have noticed this to be the case. Okay, so in terms of interpretation, the way I see this, I think I mentioned this in some other video, either on this channel or on my Russian channel. We can see this in real life already working. For example, I have a desire to buy a car. That desire will give birth to 100 other desires. What color of the car I want? I want this color. Maybe no, I want this color. I want this shade on the color. What the interior should be, how big the engine should be. So one desire, if I give it a lot of energy, that desire and importance, it will give birth to a dozen other desires. And those desires will give birth to a dozen other desires. Where do I want to park my car? I want to build a garage for it, for example. I want to buy a new security system so it doesn't get stolen. Ooh, what kind of security system? Oh, there's so much really good choice out there. So I start to look at different choices, different locks and different blocks and so forth. And so a desire, from one seed of desire, can grow into hundreds of thousands of desires, which we don't notice. And the mind is constantly jumping from one desire to the next. And what is happening during this process is that the person is unsatisfied because they're constantly wanting something. I want the car, or I want this color of the car, and then I start looking for that color, and the car of that color is not on sale. So I feel a bit unhappy about that. So I have to change my decision, and then I'm looking for a car with this side of an engine, but then this engine is not available. No, I feel a bit unhappy about that. And I'm constantly desiring. And once I got the car, you think that this would stop, but it doesn't stop. Normally, if we observe a person, it doesn't stop. Either I want to modify the car and do lots of really nice things to it, put curtains on the windows inside, for example, or anything, put new tires on it, add some kind of new suspension system or whatever. Or after a short while I want a better car, and I start dreaming and planning for a better car, and that gives birth to a billion other desires. And that never stops. And this is just regarding a car. But if we observe the mind, we can see this working towards everything. We can see it working towards what kind of phone we have, what kind of job we're working in, what kind of clothes we have. For example, this shirt, it's a bit too small for me. So every time I pick it up, a desire is born. Oh, I want a much nicer, more free shirt that I feel more comfortable in. And so forth, and so on. When we're eating food, for example, it was too salty, I don't want it to be this salty, and so on. And if we observe the mind, it is a nightmare, because it is filled with these desires. And what are these desires doing? They're causing us to lose energy. In a way, they're energizing us, but in another way, they're causing us to lose energy, to lose peacefulness, and to lose calmness. So I see how this is related to real life, everyday life. And when we do practices like meditation, where essentially we're forcing ourselves to sit and learn how to be calm and peaceful and satisfied with whatever is happening. At least sort of the typical meditation that people do. And we see psychological research shows that meditation starts to make people more and more peaceful and happy and satisfied. Because I understand essentially meditation starts to fill these holes, cover them up, so to say. Because instead of running to satisfy desires, at least at that time, we're sitting and learning to accept everything as is. Because if you sit in meditation and if you keep thinking of what you're desiring, very quickly you will stand up and leave the meditation session. And normally that's how we stop meditating, because the desire stops us to go and do something. It's a strange thing. But here I don't think Iamblichus is talking about meditation at all. This is just my understanding of that aspect of it. I think he's talking about philosophy, and one way I can see how he could mean it is these holes could be misunderstandings of how reality works. So we seek, if this is desires, that means we're seeking in the physical world. We're seeking something. And if we're doing that, and we're seeking it very actively, and we're giving it free rein, our desiring part, if we're doing that, then we're not realizing certain things. That through contemplation and understanding, we can be in the physical world and derive much more satisfaction and happiness and find that which we seek. But through the mind, rather than through energizing the physical world, through physical objects. That's how I understand it. But that, to be able to do that, we need to develop our philosophical understanding, our reasoning, our contemplation powers. And then we can just, I assume, then we can just walk around, look, and feel incredibly happy. We don't have to have a physical thing in our hands to feel happy, to feel worthwhile, and so forth, to feel whatever people want to feel through other physical things. That's my understanding of this myth. So it's a very powerful myth, I really like it. The next video, he talks about the second version of this myth, where he compares, he kind of like expands it more and takes a different spin on it. So that's also very interesting. So for now, let us do a quick meditation. Let us do the following meditation. Imagine a quality of yourself that you want to project into your life and into this world. Whatever that quality might be, that you feel at the moment you might be lacking, that you feel your soul needs to experience and project. So it could be, if you're in a difficult situation right now, it could be strength and courage. Or if you're being tempted to do something that is not right, it could be justice and then nobility, that side of things. If you're in some kind of a legal decision, or there is an option where you can trick someone and do an injustice, and you're tempted by that. Or if you're going through a difficult time, it could be calmness, peacefulness. Think of which quality is lacking. Look into yourself, which quality is lacking in yourself right now, at this moment in your life, today. And try to feel that it's starting to increase in you and overflow your being and start to radiate like the sun. Let's do this kind of meditation. Very short one. Just a couple of minutes. And then you can finish it with a prayer if you want, or anything else. Let's do that. And you can do it with eyes open or eyes closed or alternating, however you feel gives you more, fulfills your goal better. Okay, if you generated that feeling and if you noticed it's fulfilling some kind of hole in you, filling some kind of a hole, a lack, then hold that feeling, hold those words that you were using, if you were using any words, and use it as a resource to generate that feeling when next time you feel some kind of a hole in yourself. Thank you for your attention, guys. You can click on a video that might appear now on YouTube to continue watching this channel.